Casey's Corner, introducing you to small businesses in the East Valley. Brought to you by Prosperity North Advisors, a Kendall insurance agency, protecting your prosperity.
Hello everyone, Casey Kendall, Prosperity North Advisors, Kendall Insurance Agency, protecting your prosperity. Joining me today, Errol Turner, UrbanLuxe Realty.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So Errol, tell us a little bit about yourself, about UrbanLuxe, how you got started in real estate, and what you're doing.
Sure. So I'm an Arizona native, actually third generation native. So
you're the one.
I'm the one.
Perfect.
And now with my kids, we got a fourth generation
Woo!
Arizonians. So grew up here, grew up in the Phoenix area, went to high school in Phoenix, moseyed on over to ASU, so not too far down the street for college. And have lived in the East Valley for 25 years or so now. And I love it. I love Arizona. I could not really see myself living anywhere else, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're a real estate agent. Tell us about your experience in representing, selling real estate. And I want to talk about a few different things because you and I have had good conversations about not only that personal side of a home purchase or a sale of a house, but then also that investment side. So I want to touch on both of those. But tell us a little bit about who your ideal client is, who you're working with, and how UrbanLuxe is separated from, let's say, other brokerage.
So it's funny because my work background, I was in the hospitality world for close to 25 years.
Wow.
So from the time I was 16 years old, I was a busboy, turned server, turned bartender, turned bar manager, turned...
I think everyone should be some type of in service industry at some point in their life.
100%, because it makes you understand and appreciate people and what they're doing and how hard they're working. But it also instills a lot in you in regards to teamwork and just seeing how, it's one team, one dream. It's something I've always really lived by. And I went from being a bar manager to running nightclubs to running Five Diamond resorts and being in charge of beverage programs for the hotels and things like that. So that's kind of really what instilled the customer service things in my bones and in my blood. Actually, my business partner, Dave Westbrook, he is the one that started, him and Joe have started UrbanLuxe, and they both have those same type of hospitality backgrounds.
Very cool.
And that's one of those things that they are very, very, they dial into all their agents. It's just like, it's customer first, that we're very customer centric. It's about taking care of the people because this isn't short-term things. We're not in this industry for short-term gains. We're in this for the long haul.
Right.
So we're about building those relationships, keeping those relationships, nurturing them, making sure that people are taken care of, because that's the most important thing is you take care of people and it comes back to you.
Absolutely. Firm believer in that. So the market right now, Errol, is pretty crazy, to say the least.
Yes, that's a great word because I probably use that pretty often. It's funny because we've seen a bit of a shift.
Sure.
In the last almost, 2.5, almost 3 years now, it's been chaotic, to say the least. So with COVID coming into play, we saw a lot of people either being furloughed or given the ability to work remotely, which has given them a lot of freedom on where they live.
Sure.
So we've seen a lot of people in states where cost of living is through the roof, and just where maybe they're not too happy with what's going on in their government or whatever, they're making a run. And they're getting out of those states and they're coming to states like Texas and Arizona and Wyoming and Idaho and places like that, which you wouldn't expect.
I think I heard that Queen Creek was like the fastest growing city in the country.
It's either Queen Creek or, I think Buckeye is up there, believe it or not.
I've heard that as well.
Because the cost of living is a little bit lower there, so people
that's
are
a
able
drive
to
till you can afford it situation.
Exactly. And that's tough for me. I'm about convenience when it comes to location. So like I want to be somewhere where I'm going to be close to things, and I have a hard time living somewhere where, and I'll sacrifice maybe the size of a home to be somewhere a little bit more convenient.
Interesting.
That's just me, though.
Okay.
A lot of people are like, hey, I'll drive 45 minutes. That's my own time. That's my personal time to kind of just think about my day, listen to the radio.
That's why Santan exists.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. So it started off really hot and heavy, and we started seeing a really quick decline of inventory because nobody knew what was going on.
Sure.
So a lot of people were hesitant to list their home because they didn't know what was going to happen with this pandemic. So we started seeing a real large shrink in inventory, which obviously it's supply and demand. And whenever the supply's down, demand is up. And
Econ 101.
Exactly. So we started seeing these crazy price increases, and they were just gradually going up and gradually going up and gradually going up. And we saw a steady appreciation of value of homes over the last 2.5 years, to the point where I was looking at my wife and I'm like, hey, we couldn't afford the house we're in now if we tried to buy it today.
Understood.
And it makes me scared for other buyers out there, because I'm like, okay, well, is the average person going to afford to live in some of these high demand areas now? Because they're getting pushed out of these areas because if they're renting, people are wanting to sell for top value, which you can't blame somebody for that, because you do buy homes as an investment, whether it's in your family and yourself, or if it's for down the road to try to generate some revenue or some income. So you can't blame people for doing that, but it's just it got to the point where it almost became too expensive. Cost of living became too high in a lot of these areas. Like Old Town Scottsdale is a huge example of that, where we've seen a huge influx of Airbnbs. And I mean, it's a great area of town if you're looking for nightlife, if you're looking for entertainment, if you're looking for restaurants, just walking distance and all those types of things. And I mean, same thing with Gilbert. I mean, this downtown Gilbert area is
Scottsdale Junior.
It's boomed, and they've taken some of the things from Scottsdale, and they've brought them, the things that do well in the Scottsdale, and they brought them to Gilbert, because a lot of people don't want to make that drive anymore.
Sure.
And you can't blame them.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I've got it in my own backyard, why am I going to drive 30 minutes to go somewhere else to do it?
So in our interactions and time that we've spent together, you've actually presented to me a package that you give a potential seller.
Yes.
And I've never seen anything like that before. I thought it was a phenomenal tool. Tell us a little bit about what that package looks like.
Sure.
And what is it actually in it?
So there's a lot that goes in to a listing appointment. So a listing appointment is where somebody is trying to earn the business of a client, or trying to have them become a client of theirs. And so my listing packets are probably a little bit more intense than a lot of people's.
Sure.
So I put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's more than just, hey, the house across the street sold for this much, and your house is pretty.
Comps.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that, and we look at lots of different things. We look at school districts. We look at the average income of the neighborhood to kind of give people an idea. I'm like, hey, this is what the average household income is in this neighborhood in comparison to a neighborhood that's maybe 3 blocks away this way. And they do vary substantially in a lot of those cases, which makes people decide on, well, hey, if that's a low average household income, are those the types of neighborhoods we want to live in? Because there's probably a lot of turnover, because are there a lot of rentals?
Potential riffraff or whatever.
Yeah, there are a lot of rentals in that neighborhood, and a lot of people don't want to deal with, people constantly moving, coming and going as their neighbors, especially if you've got a young family and things like that. Safety's an issue.
Right, absolutely.
So there's a lot of detailed information that goes into that, those packets, but it's not just that, but the most important thing is talking to your client first, finding out what is important to them in selling their home. What is the reasoning behind them selling their home? And you don't think of them as a payday, you think of them as a person. And that's the most important thing, is you get to the bottom of, hey, what is the reasoning? Are you doing this because financially you need to? Unfortunately, some things happened in your life where you can't afford to live in this home anymore. Are you an empty nesters and you have way too much house now? So there's a lot of things that go into that. So every single one of my leasing packets is very different from one another. They're very catered to the individual. They're very in depth. And, it's kind of a bit of a wow statement. And I like to send that to the client's home before I ever meet with them. It's a very broad idea of what value potentially could be for their home. And, every home has three values. You've got the value that the home is listed for.
Okay.
You've got, there's three values. So the value of the home, what it appraises at. You've got the value of the home that the seller thinks it's valued at.
To the emotion.
Exactly.
Sure.
And then you've got the value of the home for somebody that's willing to pay for that home. So they can be very different from one another.
Absolutely.
Because
just the human element.
Exactly. Because people get very attached to their homes, which they should. Because emotionally and financially, they've been
we have a
connected
phrase.
to it.
This house has become a home.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you have to make sure you always remember that when you're talking to people. And, just because of there's so many different, every few years, trends change and things like that. And people's idea of what is updated and what is not updated are very different. So people.
I would imagine that you run into a lot of random colors, let's say.
Yes.
Walls painted. My wife and I like to call those free paint colors.
Well, it's funny because in the mid and early 2000s, there were some really dramatic colors that came out.
A lot of
teals, like some dark maroons, they're accent colors, and which are great. I love accent walls, and we've got quite a few in our home, but you got to be very specific on what color you choose for the space. Painting a small room dark maroon, it's going to make it feel even smaller.
Side note,
yes.
When my wife and I, when we bought our house, the primary suite was dark forest green carpet with what were originally red walls that had faded to pink. And it took 3 to 5 gallons of kills
Yep.
just to get it off.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears. Let's talk about the investment side. And we're not necessarily talking about commercial properties. That's a different animal altogether.
Yeah.
We're talking about a single family home as an investment.
Yeah. So there's a few ways to look at that. So there's long-term investments, right? So where you're purchasing a home because you know that the long-term gain is going to be there. And you're either purchasing it for yourself or you're purchasing it, to live in, and you're trying to build equity and over time maybe pull out that equity or do whatever you want.
Right.
But then there's also the short-term side of that. So Airbnbs, VRBOs, all those things have become really, really popular, especially since COVID.
Sure.
So with Arizona, we were kind of one of those states that we opened up faster than everybody else, So, California's and places like that where everything was so shut down.
Becomes a destination.
Yes, so Arizona was high demand. So we saw a huge influx of investors coming to town, purchasing properties, renovating them, making sure, pools, the whole 9 yards, because that's what you want. When you go on vacation, your ideal is open concept, entertainment, pool area, barbecue, all that kind of stuff. So you've seen a huge influx in that because there's a lot of money that can be made in that. But the problem with that is then you've got neighbors that are now worried about, hey, my house next door has now become a VRBO. And so there's some pros and cons to that. And you just got to be very careful that you're not over.
You guys handle that process. You review CC&Rs.
Correct.
Make sure that day one, all of a sudden, they're not going to get a letter or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
Now, all that stuff, we take care of all that stuff beforehand. And we know the neighborhoods. We manage about 30 properties currently.
Oh, very cool.
All single family homes, majority pair Paradise Valley, Scottsdale.
Tell us about
area.
that management process.
So we're very hands-off for the owners. We try to make it as simple and seamless for our owners as possible. So where they're just literally getting a check every month. So we handle everything in regards to, we can furnish the home for you if you'd like, where we literally do everything. We can hire contractors to do any kind of work that needs to be done.
To create that open concept.
Exactly, that open concept everybody wants, with the light palettes and those things. And then we also will do all the small furnishing things as well. So silverware, plates, all the things that you wouldn't think about.
The devil is in the details.
Exactly, and our checklist is long of items that need to go into a home for it to be functional.
Sure.
Because when you're on vacation, you're not bringing these things with you. They need to be there for you.
Are you managing it on the vacation website as well, as far as the marketing and those types of things?
Correct. So we're on all the major websites, the VRBOs, the Airbnbs. Five Diamond Property Management is the name of our company, and we have our own website as well. It's fivediamond.co. And we have the ability to book directly on our site, which saves you a little bit of money. Cool. Because the VRBOs fees and the Airbnbs, they will take those fees, and it's amazing how fast those can add up.
Yeah, everyone's got their hand in the
cookie jar. And it's our website's fantastic. You can see videos, photos of all of our homes. Nice. Locations, general locations, obviously we don't put addresses on there, but general locations of where they are, and we're still looking to add to our portfolio. We've seen some crazy numbers that our clients have netted each year, and so it's a very lucrative industry if it's purchased properly
and managed correctly.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Correct.
Errol, what is the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Sure. So I've got my phone 24/7. It never leaves my side except for when I'm sleeping, but then it's about 2 feet away from me. So my phone number is 480-688-5622. Or you can email me at Errol at UrbanLuxe.com. That's ERROL at UrbanLuxere.com.
Perfect. I will make sure that is all there. It should be right there.
Awesome.
Errol, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. If you'd like to be featured on Casey's Corner, please like, subscribe, share this video. Thanks very much. Have a great day.